Hi, welcome to episode 11 of Ministry Talks. Today we're going to talk about holidays and the ministry family. It's getting really close to Thanksgiving and Christmas and what we call the holiday season around here. And so I thought it would be a good opportunity to talk about maybe some of the tension and some of the strain that is involved in being a ministry family around the big holiday season, as well as the little holiday seasons, or even just family holidays like birthdays and things that we want to be able to celebrate and honor together. I think that a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about, a lot of people experience just because we live in a very mobile society. And I think that's important to recognize that this isn't just specific to ministry families, but there might be people around you that also experience the struggle of living far away from families or having jobs that require them to be, on or be to work during when other people might be celebrating and spending time with family and things. But at the same time, there is something unique to some degree about being in a ministry family for holidays, especially the big ones, we call them like Christmas and Easter. It is a little bit of a different vibe. We obviously are going to celebrate holidays a little different than a lot of people maybe. But at the same time, I think that hopefully today we're going to get a little closer to maybe making a little bit of peace with that reality and also finding some of the joy that's in ministry life around holidays. So I just wanted to talk about a little bit of some of the three main things that I think amplify the feeling of that struggle with holidays in being in the ministry family. The first one is being away from family. Very often, and maybe some of you have your family close by, maybe some of you have one side of your family close by and then other family far away. But that's a huge piece of it. The fact that you don't have your family, next door, down the block, or in the same town often to go celebrate with is a big piece of the struggle of holidays in the ministry family. And then also that it is the busy season, that it isn't so easy to take off for Christmas and go home for the holidays, or, at Easter, or especially at Thanksgiving when you have that very real short holiday you can't just run unless you're going to take vacation. And often there's church services and expectations and, just kind of weighing those things. For instance, at our First Parish in Ohio, we for years spent Thanksgiving by ourselves or occasionally with friends. It was a really hard time for me because there was a Wednesday evening service before Thanksgiving, and then there was Sunday service, and it would have been a stress point to take one or both of those off. But then at some point we decided that we were going to ask, and we did take that week off one time, or we took a portion of it off, or there are some options, and I think that's important to keep in mind, but every situation's different, and your situation's different than mine. But I think we can all reflect on the fact that often when you think about holidays in ministry, it is a busy season, and so that may not be our best time to be able to leave and go somewhere or do whatever and celebrate the way we ideally would like in our heads. And the last one is that holidays themselves tend to amplify loneliness. So if we're already experiencing a little bit of isolation, already feeling a little disconnected and in longing for friendships and things that often happens in ministry life, the loneliness can be amplified at the holidays. And we're going to talk about how some of that's real, some of that's not real, but to some degree, it just doesn't matter. It is a reality. If you are feeling lonely, it's important to recognize it and honor that to some degree, and let God fill in the spaces in our lives and bring in more grace. So first, I want to talk about some scriptures that I think apply to this holidays in ministry families. And then I want to talk about 3 points that will maybe help bring some peace to this, maybe help you in this topic of holidays in ministry life. I would love to hear from you what things have worked for you with celebrating holidays in ministry families, what joy you have in it, what struggles you have with it. I just think the entire point of Ministry Talks is to start the conversation. So gathering around this together, not just Heidi talking at you. So we'd love to hear some of your ideas and suggestions and thoughts on that. So first, applying the scriptures. Two things come to mind in particular. First is that loneliness factor. And so the verse that I found the most encouraging about this for me, we can talk about casting our cares on God and how he responds to our prayers, and how he fills us, when the world kind of just leaves us empty. But there was this one passage in the Psalms that I just felt really spoke to this situation of holidays and ministry life. Psalm 68 verses 4-6. Sing to God, sing praises to his name, lift up a song to him who rides through the deserts. His name is the Lord, exalt before him. Father of the fatherless and protector of widows is God in his holy habitation. God settles the solitary in a home. He leads out the prisoners to prosperity, but the rebellious dwell in a parched land. I just thought that was so beautiful that God settles the solitary in a home. And especially when I think of holidays, I think of, home for the holidays and that just idea. And we have iconic songs about it and everything, but that God settles the solitary in a home. It's a promise of his. And I think there's layers to this. Number one, that we do have a home and oftentimes a nuclear family that we can enjoy together, that we have a spouse maybe, or we have children. We often have more than just us that we can celebrate that with. And maybe we don't get the extended family option on a lot of holidays, but that is something we often have. He settles us in this home, this here and now. Then I think that widens out, the congregation to some degree is a new family that God has given us. And that just like regular families, it doesn't always feel perfect. It has a lot of issues and stuff. But, where are the places and spaces where we can find some home within the family of the congregation that God has given us, within the community, the new neighborhood that he's given us, whether that looks like, in my internship congregation when I was a deaconess, they actually had a Thanksgiving dinner at the church for people that came. And that part of that was because there were just a lot of members, older members in particular, that just did not have someone to spend the holidays with either. And so that was a unique opportunity. Maybe it's being invited over to a member's homes. And a lot of times we kind of wish that would happen and we can't just make it happen. But who are the people, that we could maybe spend some time with? What neighbors don't have families around either? And we'll talk about some ideas and stuff for that soon. But just that God provides that home in a different way, often that family in a different way. And then the last layer of that is, of course, sometimes it is just us. And even in our nuclear family, sometimes it is just us. But where is real home? And that is wherever Jesus is. That is a difficult reality of the Christian walk, but also a blessed reality of it, that we no longer just long for home because he's given us his spirit. We know that heaven is our home, but we have God with us now, in us. And so he settles us in that. He gives us peace in that. And sometimes it's just a supernatural peace. We don't always just experience it, but we can hold on to that promise. I think it's really cool how it talks about that he lift up a song to him who rides through the deserts. So often, whether the holiday itself, whatever holiday it is, feels kind of like a desert because there's so much going on and it's kind of draining you, or whether that crash and burn after the busy holidays and all the pomp and circumstance comes in, sometimes that can be a desert too, but he rides through it. We're singing his praises and he is in that desert is also a cool thing to remember. The second thing I thought of scripturally that I think applies here, and this is a little bit more law-oriented, and I'm sorry, but it's just really the reality I see with holidays, is envy. So often when we are thinking about ministry life and holidays, instead of really reflecting just solely on what what we are experiencing or what God is doing in our lives, so often we're busy looking at someone else's life and wishing we had it. So often we're like, well, they get to spend time with their family, or they get to do this, and I want that. And I think it's really important to recognize when that is happening, because it's going to happen. We are sinful people. 1 Corinthians 3:3 comes to mind. For you are still of the flesh. For while there is jealousy and strife among you, are you not of the flesh and behaving only in a human way? We are going to be those people sometimes. And we're going to want what other people want. But the only cure for that is the gospel of Christ coming in. And so sometimes being able to recognize, like, oh, I am so super worried about what they have instead of what God's given me, is really important in just pulling off that pain and struggle of the holiday season sometimes, whatever holiday that might be. And 1 Corinthians 13, just a little bit further down, tells us, really what is the only thing that solves envy, the only thing that, that will really help us through the burden of our own struggle with looking at what others have and wanting it, is love. And it says love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant. God's love in particular is really the only thing that can cure that. And so just sitting before him, confessing, letting him absolve us, letting him fill us with his word when we're struggling with something like that is really important. And asking God to bless those people when the first thought we had was, first thought doesn't always have to be the best thought. That's the beauty of grace. The second thought can be maybe a little better. Grace offers that second chance for even our thoughts. And so when we say, oh, they get to do this, letting that second thought come in. Okay, Lord, bless them. Give them good times with their family, guide them, help it to be about you. Just different things like praying over those people when we feel that envy might be really helpful. Proverbs 14:30 says, a tranquil heart gives life to the flesh, but envy makes the bones rot. And I thought that was just a simple, concise way of reminding us that life is not in the envy. We will never experience life in those holidays with our envy. But instead, what happens a lot of times with envy, when we look at what somebody else has, we end up blaming. We throw out blame that we don't have what we want because of this person, because of that. And we get a little bit of resentment maybe for our church, our congregation, for just ministry, God, you name it, our spouse, our own job, just stuff like that. It ends up coming in when we leave it unchecked. It can also come out as irritability, and that's just, we don't want that. I know you don't want that for your own family and for your own life, is to just live in irritation during the holidays, whatever holiday that is, because you're really at the bottom of it is sadness. I think we end up lonely and sad that we would like to be with those we love, or the holiday doesn't meet kind of our expectations. So the best thing I can offer you is to just let yourself experience that and honor the disappointment. If this is something you struggle with, and again, not everyone will struggle with this, but if it's something that you struggle with, just saying, okay, this is disappointing. I feel disappointed. And, sometimes some of the best conversations my husband and I have ever had is when one of us is disappointed about a holiday or that we can't see our family, and the other hears it, and we don't try to fix it, but just honoring that for each other, honoring that for a ministry friend on the phone or another staff member can be really helpful. And finding some life in it. What is God doing? Even though it looks different than you might have thought. Like, where's the life in it? And, of course, that's wherever Jesus is working. Wherever Jesus is doing his thing, that's where the life is. So 3 action things I think might help with this struggle and the joy of holidays and ministry life. Number 1, keeping it in perspective. I want to tell you that in the U.S. in particular, but in other cultures too, but U.S. in particular, and you can tell me about your own cultural setting, but we have a weight on holidays that just does not need to be there. We have so much expectation laden to Christmas, especially, but certainly Thanksgiving, Easter, even like it's so funny. We start to create these like National Chocolate Day and, National pat your best friend on the back day. I don't know. We create things. And my husband just had a sermon and he was saying, you can't celebrate all of it. You can't. And so we want to be there for National Sibling Day, but is it even a thing? You have to start to consider. Of course, the nativity of our Lord matters a lot, but it's really about the Lord. It's not necessarily about what we want to get out of our family that day or what we want to experience. Also, just recognizing that what other people are experiencing may not be the holly jolly idea we have in our brain. We have this idea in our brain that like, oh, if we could only get together with our family, it would just be so beautiful. Our holidays would be complete. And I mean, is that really family life? If you were going to be with your siblings, with your parents, with your extended aunts and uncles, with your cousins, with your children, whoever, your grandchildren, is it always holly jolly? I doubt it, right? I doubt it. There's going to be some stress and tension too. It might be very lovely, but weighing that balance, knowing that it's not all, flowers, roses, and unicorns floating, I think is really helpful. We always manage things, our perspective in the light of eternity. So what is this holiday about? And what is God doing in it? And what is he going to do in this space here and now is an important thing. Recognizing that 64% of people researched by NAMI, the National Alliance for Mental Illness, were affected in some way by the holiday blues, they call it. So many of us are going to experience loneliness, whether we're in ministry life or not, especially around the big holidays of Thanksgiving and Christmas. But I think this can be drawn out to other places and times. I think even like on like Labor Day, which is really random, sometimes I'll get really lonely and a little bit sad because other people go out for a barbecue with their family or they have plans. They have plans. I think that's one thing for me and my personality type, especially. I really like plans. And so maybe some of you experience that and maybe some of you don't. But 64% on average of people everywhere experience the holiday blues. That's a pretty big number. And so looking around you, who else, is alone? Who else can we share this with? I think there's a lot of opportunity for that. And we'll get to that in point 3. Sometimes the holiday blues can come out as tired, just extra tired. And, often there's a lot of work to do anyway, but extra tired. Frustration, which I said we kind of take out, irritability on our families and on ourselves, maybe our coworkers, and also just that basic sense of loss. And I'll put a link in the show notes to that NAMI. There's a whole visual graphic that kind of explains the holiday blues you can check out. Consider that it might be harder for your spouse at the holidays than it is for you, particularly if you're the worker in the church. You have these like goals and purposes and you're going to do some stuff, and your spouse, might, again, everyone experiences it different, but just being in tune to what they need. Same thing with your kids, like just recognizing whatever your kids are going through, what they wish, what they are kind of wanting their holiday to look like, but also weighing that with, what we all need and what ministry life is. Children are freakishly resilient, and I think that's important, but they also are sensitive. And those two things go together. Often as a church work mom, for instance, I want my kids to be able to be with their cousins a lot more. I want them to experience growing up together and doing all of that. I hate when we left my parents' house, for instance, on any given, holiday or vacation, and my daughter would be in the back sobbing because she's like, we never get to see anyone. I know it's painful and it hurts. It's a reality. Also knowing that as I see her grow, I can see her start to understand a little bit more some of the choices that we have made. And those haven't been easy. And wrestling with them together, talking about it, and sharing when we feel a little bit junky about the way kind of life is and with the holidays and family and all of that. But also being real about what God is doing and what we've chosen and what He's chosen for us and things like that can be really good. So sensitive, but knowing that they are also building resilience to be able to be flexible people in this world, which is kind of a gift of ministry. We learn a lot of flexibility that maybe a lot of people don't. We have a lot of experiences that maybe people don't get to have. So number 2, remembering that Christ came for you, dear church worker, dear ministry family. I think that because we are so concerned, we know that we're sinful people and we are intrinsically super selfish. Sometimes as church workers, we over apply stuff to other people because we know so intimately the fact that we are selfish individuals and we want it for ourselves. So in order to deal with that, we push it and we just continuously over apply it to other people, and we don't know how to apply it to ourselves then. And many of you don't have a pastor or don't have a unique individual that is the person that kind of reminds you that you are cared for by Jesus too. So take whatever holiday it is and apply it to yourself. It's just kind of a fun thing. And sometimes visual faith really helps with this, whether you sit down to Bible journal and just write some words in the notes in the margin of the Christmas story again, or the resurrection story, or just anywhere. Or if you take a bookmark and color it, jot some notes, just contemplate, where is Jesus in this holiday? What is He doing? What is the point, I guess? But remembering that it's for you too, that gospel just for you, and just apply it to yourself. That's a challenge, right? And sometimes we really wish we had maybe someone to do that for us, to show us, to lead us in that, but that may not be our reality. Finding some friends to do that within one another. Hey, remind me of what Jesus is doing for me in this season, because this is a hard season for me, that kind of stuff. Also then, we're going to want to do that with our families. Again, with children being sensitive but resilient, we need to help it apply to them. So because of some of the weird church work dynamics, of course your children, if you're the pastor, if you're the teacher, for instance, they're going to hear the word, and that's an awesome thing. But sometimes there's a little bit of a disconnect, I think, and they need to do it in the home too, and make sure we're not just doing it in church. And we know that's true for everybody else, but reminding ourselves that is true for us too. So talking about, doing our devotions around the table, talking about our highs and lows and what God is doing in our days, those kinds of things are really helpful to process what is God doing in this with us, and helping kids know Christ came for you, just for you. So the last one, number 3, getting creative. So church work, ministry life demands a lot of creativity. Sometimes that's tiring, but it's sometimes just the reality, a lot of creativity. So here's some quick ideas for getting creative around holidays. Number 1, Friendsgiving. It's like my favorite thing ever. I think it's kind of cool in our culture now that family is important, but it doesn't have to be everything. Sometimes when you can't get to family, there's a lot of people like that. Again, a lot of people moving around. There's military families. There's just a lot of people taking positions, new jobs in other places. So who around you in your community is also looking for friends to share the holidays with? That can be one of the most amazing benefits of ministry life, is that you don't always just have the set thing you do. We're going to develop some new things and spend time with new people. And I love Friendsgiving. It's one of my favorite things in the whole wide world. And I just love those days where I get to spend them with people. And then also maybe some years I get lucky and I get to have Thanksgiving with my own family. And things like Friendsgiving are creative because they don't have to be on that day. Like, you can do it on Thanksgiving, but you can also do it. We're having Friendsgiving for our youth group this month, for instance, and having them bring friends, and everybody brings a side dish, and we'll have a turkey. It's fun, different, and it's a cool way to celebrate. Do nothing day. Sometimes in ministry, the beauty of holidays is you get a pass and you don't have to do anything. So even if you have like church service one part of the day that you are just done and you have zero plans to do anything, including cook, maybe, if that's your reality, but having a do nothing day is completely creative and optional for holidays. Having a crazy theme has helped our family sometimes. We have bacon cheeseburgers for Thanksgiving a lot because we just need to do something different. We're gonna do something different. We rarely eat ham for Easter, but I make up a new theme every year. Maybe your family does a Mexican food themed Christmas, or a heritage dish. Maybe that is your heritage. Maybe you do. We have some friends who do Hafenfussen. I think that's how you say it, but it's like stewed rabbit or something from their German heritage for a different holiday. Just get into a theme. Ask your kids. Ask your spouse, your neighbors, whoever. Do something fun like that. Make it all purple day. I don't know. I don't think a lot of us are going to choose that to go around and wear purple, our entire family, all day long on this particular day. But you can do whatever you want is the point. Just get a little crazy theme. Sometimes it's been helpful for us to do a hotel for a night or a day. Just something a little different, a pool to swim in, a way to just spend. And I know that's a financial cost, but maybe that's something to do to just add a little zip to the holidays. I really encourage you to say yes to the invites from people in your churches or your congregations or your neighbors. I also encourage you to say no if that's what you need to say. It's okay. Easter in particular, I hear from a lot of church workers that they're just tired. And I think part of it is where it hits in the school year for teachers and stuff, but also for pastors, it's, kind of a marathon of Holy Week, and for church musicians, of course, and for lots of people in ministry, sometimes there's a good place to say, yep, I would love to come and join you. If you're listening to this and you are not a church worker, please invite your church workers in, allow them to say no. And also church workers, feel free to say no and to say yes where that's appropriate for you. FaceTime, Skype, phones, and cards are obviously really good. In our family, we have this silly thing where we, send a lot of Valentines because I don't know. It's just a really fun time to bless one another with some actual hard mail with stamps and stuff. It's kind of fun. We have a thing that I just started called Cousin's Birthday Party. Sometimes I've noticed that one of the harder parts to miss for ministry life is the littler things, the little holidays, we'll call them, not just always the big ones because you might have something to do, but the fact that my nephew, I never get to be there for his birthday and it makes me sad. The fact that we never get to celebrate, people's graduations or from kindergarten, say, stuff like that. Like that's kind of hard. So what can you do that's a little bit different alternative to celebrate that? I created something called Cousin Birthday Party. So in the summer, we get to go to my husband's. We live 14 hours away now. And all of his brothers and sisters and our nieces and nephews come. And we last 2 years have had, we make a cake or I buy treats or ice cream and everybody opens their presents and cards that I have instead of sending them, in the mail throughout the year. But maybe a birthday in a box is another way to deal with that. You can do with it however you want, but it can be really, really fun. I remember when we were first married and a church sent us a baby shower in a box. Maybe that's something we can do for like someone we can't be there for that, send them something. And with technology, thankfully, we can do a lot to be together, but sometimes those old-fashioned postage methods are pretty cool. Remember that Jesus wasn't born on December 25th. Jesus didn't rise on the third, fourth Sunday after, I don't know, whatever full moon. I don't know how we track Easter, let's just be honest. But those things didn't actually occur on those days, so we can pick another day too. What's important to your family? Make sure it gets celebrated. Ring in the new year in the middle of July when you get to go visit your family, whatever. Just be kind of creative and make your own traditions. And that can be really fun. And then where you can, take advantage of being able to visit and do things the old-fashioned way too. So I hope that's a little encouraging you just to open the conversation again about holidays and ministry families. I'd love to hear your thoughts, what's worked for you, some ideas and suggestions, what's been a burden and what's been a joy for you. I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining me.